Australia's recycling scam. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I'm back in Brisbane and I have my stein of coffee. I'll let you know how my job down the Gold Coast went, installing a floor. I just need to go back and paint the skirtings and then I'll share some photographs. But let's have a look at this article. Now this was written a few days ago. 60 Minutes did an expose on the recycling industry here in Australia and essentially how it's all a big con and ending up now in Malaysia because the Chinese have stopped buying our rubbish. I remember years ago, back at university, because in architecture we're all meant to be a bunch of green hippies, and I remember learning about the embodied energy involved in recycling a lot of materials, and that in some remote communities where the councils are actually recycling stuff, it is a negative. It actually causes more damage to the environment and more cost than if you were just to dispose of it. So it's all a bit of a, let's shift our guilt and feel good. And if you haven't seen the 60-minute expose, I encourage you to watch it. And I thought, let's read through this article and have a bit of a talk. So, you might think you're looking out for the environment by recycling, but where it actually ends up has now been revealed, which just shows you that most people don't understand what they're actually doing. They're just going with the flow and feeling like it's the better thing for the environment. Like I've learned about recently about recycling scrap. How little money you get for it, but bloody hell, I'll save all my scrap metal now, drive to the yard and sell my 140 kilos worth of steel and get a couple of, carton for it if I can. So let's have a read. We all think we're doing something decent for the environment when we recycle, but the truth about where it ends up might shock you. Most of Australia's plastic rubbish ends up being stockpiled in warehouses or shipped to Southeast Asia to be illegally burned. Illegally burned. So is it better for the environment to burn the plastic or to bury it? What would be the better solution? At least if it's buried, it won't get released into the atmosphere as fast. This means that instead of being recycled, mountains of it is being dumped, buried, or burned in illegal processing facilities and junkyards in Southeast Asia. Sunday night's episode of 60 Minutes explores the contentious practice, and it argues it began when China closed its doors to Australia's plastic waste just over a year ago. Yeah, I also became aware of this when we were working on a project in the city, and I was negotiating with different providers of waste disposal and talking to them about recycling in the city. And you're not going to get any money, because I was saying, well, we get money for our recycling because they can sell it. And he said, nope, no chance. No one wants it. It's worthless. It gets stockpiled. And the thing is, in these warehouses, it becomes a fire hazard. You've got to remember that too. It's not safe. So it argues that for more than 2 decades, our plastic recycling industry was reliant on China. So we didn't really have a plastic recycling industry. That's an incorrect term there. We should cross that out. We had a plastic export or plastic waste export industry. We didn't have a recycling industry. There's only, and they'll say in this article, or they do on the 60 Minutes, there's only one manufacturer in Australia that recycles the stuff. It's all shipped overseas. However, much of it is now just stacking up in the yards and warehouses of Australia's recycling companies. I'd say waste plastic exporting companies, as we don't have the facilities to reprocess it ourselves. And this aligns with the video I did yesterday about manufacturing in Australia. Just think about that. We can't even manufacture or reprocess plastic in our own country. We can't even do that. How are we going to have a manufacturing sector? Everyone can't be a public servant. Everyone can't be a latte coffee barista, although I'm sure most people would love doing that. Don't we need a manufacturing part of our economy, or am I just old-fashioned? Maybe I am. I think most people in Australia feel lied to. I think they feel disappointed. Plastic Forest founder and owner David Hodge told 60 Minutes. 90% of people do want to recycle, and they need to be enabled to be able to do that. Okay, well, that's your opinion, but true. If 90% of people do want to recycle, I know when I found out about this, I was telling Rachel or other people, I'm going, don't bother putting it in the recycling bin. It's probably worse for the environment. It's better if it's buried. They all look at you like you're evil Florian, they'd say. It's just because I've got a German-sounding name and I'm bald. It's just discriminatory. That's what it is. It's racial profiling. I'm gonna have my coffee on that one. So, since China stopped buying our rubbish, India, which was the fourth biggest import for Australia's waste, followed suit last December. I wonder why. So yes, as a result, Australia's recyclable rubbish is now being dumped in Indonesia, Vietnam, and in particular Malaysia, which received more than 71,000 tons of our rubbish. Plastic, not our rubbish, just our plastic, in the last year alone. Mr. Hodge told the program, the worrying trend has come about as a result of a lack of planning in Australia. Well, no, not a lack of planning, a lack of actually having an industry in Australia that can make use of this stuff. Because rather than, really, if you can just take it, bundle it up and ship it, and then make coin doing that, why would you go to the bother of processing it here in Australia, where you have to invest in the capital infrastructure, you have to pay the Australian wages, and you might not even be competitive with the pellets, the reprocessed plastic, with overseas markets. And what manufacturing sector is there in Australia to even use your pellets? I doubt there isn't that many. And then, would you, as a manufacturer here in Australia, I think someone left a comment on my video yesterday, an Australian company was trying to make toothbrushes, and apparently his wholesale price was $2 compared to 20 cents from offshore stuff. So it just shows you that a part of our manufacturing economy, just the simple part of making a raw material from a waste product I'd argue, isn't that economically viable in Australia, or it would not be as competitive as overseas. You've got to remember, we all have to remember, we've got a tiny population here, and we're not central to anything. We're at the end. We're at the end of the colonial, journey. In Asia, in Southeast Asia, they've got so many export markets within very close proximity. I mean, hell, eventually they'll be able to, ship by train to Europe. I think that's started. It first arrived in Stuttgart, if I remember. You can freight by train all the way to Europe from Asia. Remember, everything from Australia needs to go out by ship or plane. That adds time and cost and makes it less competitive. So we haven't built the infrastructure. We haven't thought ahead. Yes, you're right. We haven't. Well, there's really no incentive to do it. Now we're here and we're drowning in plastic. Yep, we are. We are. What can you do? What can you do? Analysis of our waste exports commissioned by the Department of the Environment and Energy stated that several Asian countries, including Malaysia, have proposed crackdowns on waste importers. If Malaysia, Vietnam, and Thailand enacted waste import bans similar to China's, Australia would need to find substitute domestic or export markets for approximately 1.2 million tonnes of waste a year, based on the 2017-18 export amounts, the analysis warns. The Waste Management and Resource Recovery Association of Australia, it's a long brand, Chief Executive Gayleen Sloan, has taken aim at the federal government. Why? Saying it has done nothing since China shut us off. Well, maybe as an organisation, you should try and generate a market in Australia for it. But how is this the government's responsibility? Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess the government is doing a lot of the collecting and the processing. They're involved in it. Maybe the local governments at least. Would there be a way? But see, this is the thing. I'm thinking, okay, is there a way we could leverage this resource for small scale micro manufacturing at home? But the plastic that you use in all the rapid prototypers is different to the PET stuff. It can't be processed as easily. Or I think it can be. I think there is a machine that lets you convert plastic bottles and waste to that. But that's innovation. That's innovation. That would be something I would love to see the government proposing, rather than Bill Shorten saying, "Oh, we're going to make everyone use electric cars by such and such a year." We're going to invest. CSIRO is going to look at a way to repurpose the Australian plastic waste. We put this much aside to try and create a micro-manufacturing economic potential here in Australia. Something like that, something a bit innovative, but they don't think like that. They just regurgitate the same old crap over and over again, and we're never going to catch up. We're never going to. Anyway, she told ABC the 1.2 million tons of recyclable materials households are producing could be turned into jobs and investment if the circular economy can only take off. Yeah, well, cradle to cradle, but we don't have the manufacturing here. What gets made in Australia anymore? What gets made in Australia anymore? It's just too cheap in these overseas countries. Do you need to argue for maybe restricting access from countries that don't have the same human rights as Australia has? I don't like any market manipulation, but from an ethical perspective, you've got all these lefties importing all their shirts from communist China. Well, okay, they'd probably love that, but you've got all these social justice warriors on their iPhones where they're putting suicide barriers up about that. Whereas the triple bottom line is to take account of the horrendous work conditions. Do the average consumer, are they even aware of that? Would that influence their buying decision? My instinct tells me no, it wouldn't. It just all comes down to the dollar, and with the way that how popular all the fear-mongering episodes I'm doing at the moment seem to be, I think it's just going to stay in the almighty dollar. Just look at Dick Smith. His brand kind of died, didn't it? We've had meetings. We've had more meetings. Then we've had more talk and had no action, she said. Well, yeah, that's government. It's just meetings, and more meetings, committees and talks. I mean, that's a big part of government. Things take time. Now, Mr. Hodges' company is hoping the exposure of mainstream media coverage will make the government and public take notice. Recycling only works when people, corporates, and government buy products made with recycled content, the company wrote on its Facebook page this week. That's true. We look at the recycled content in particular products that we recommend to clients, but what do you think is the number one factor? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What do you reckon? As we know, the options to send our waste or a misallocated resource overseas will come to an end. Well, yes. So, it's a big con. I see opportunities there. I wonder if our political leaders have the really capacity to take advantage of it. I doubt they do. I think manufacturing industry is in too much trouble. Really, this is just another sign of that industry. It really is. It is a sign of the challenges our manufacturing sector is facing. And I'd like to see strategies from really how the market can adapt, or maybe this is just a process that we have to go through as a country. Maybe it is. Guys, let me know what you think. I'm not at all surprised about this. I've been aware that recycling's been a bit of a con for a while now, and it makes people feel good. But anyway, please like, share, and subscribe, ding the bell, and I'll talk to you all again next time. Bye for now.